Parental fatigue, burnout. If you're feeling this, we get it. But there's one thing we use when we're feeling depleted. It's called Rehydrate. Delicious electrolytes that increase blood flow to your brain, organs, and nervous system, boosting your energy without anything nasty. Magic.
Next time you're feeling flat, give Rehydrate a go. Available at Coles. It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. I'm Dr. Justin Coulson, and I'm joined by Luke and Susie, husband and wife radio duo with 3 young boys. Myself, well, my wife Kylie and I have 6 young daughters. Well, actually, the youngest is young. The oldest has been married. She's just celebrated her first year anniversary. Can you believe that? I can't believe that. I feel surprisingly young for somebody who's got a daughter who's been married for 12 months. Anyway, today we just want our kids to have amazing childhoods. I mean, that's what every parent dreams of. Their children looking back dreamily on all of those wonderful experiences they had as families, but sometimes it feels like we're never going to get there. If we want them to have great childhoods, we want them to have such special childhoods, how do we make that happen? We've got a listener question that makes this a really great conversation to have.
Now, Melanie is the wisdom behind this question. I love it so much, and I'm going to be taking notes on this one. She says, I feel like I'm failing at creating good memories for my kids. I see my friends doing amazing holidays and picnics, and all I ever seem to do is just the basic housework and getting the kids through their day. How do I make sure my kids have happy memories of their childhood?
Well, the first thing that I would say is stop looking at everybody else.
Yes.
Teddy Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. And can I tell you, there are so many psychological studies that highlight the terrible undoing of well-being that comparison creates. So stop looking at everyone's Instagram and Facebook. Just give yourself a holiday from it for a little while, because not only will you stop comparing, but you'll also free up a whole lot of time to make memories with your own children.
There's step one. So what actually makes good memories for our kids? I think that's a really interesting thing to look at here, because we can think it's the picnics and the holidays and the amazing experiences. But I look back and like some of my favorite memories are just sitting in front of the TV together as a family, eating our meal and having funny conversations, or dancing in the lounge room because Dad's put on his favorite record.
Or teasing my sister for her boyfriend when she was 13.
Yeah. What was her name?
My sister's name was Lana. Her boyfriend's name was Marsh. We called him Marshmallow, and his friend Columbine. I still remember the jokes.
Lana's got a boyfriend. That's what you'd say, right? Or you'd say Lana and Marsh sitting in a tree. Kissing. And isn't it funny that that's what makes memories? I think that we want to... Now, if you've got the capacity to, if you've got the capability and the resources and the time to put on the special parties or do the special picnics, that's wonderful. And there are some parents who are able to do that, and I commend you and more power to you. Every now and again, my wife, Kylie, Mrs. Happy Families, she'll invest a month into putting on something amazing for the children, and it's incredible. We love it when we get to do that sort of thing, but you can't do that every Saturday. You can't do that on a, multiple times a week sort of basis. The best way to find out what the memories are that your children have, the best memories that they can hang on to and grasp and play with, is to ask them. So around the dinner table, most families are familiar with the idea now. I've been talking about it for well over a decade. At the end of the day, sit down, have your evening meal, make sure all the screens are turned off and say, what were you grateful for today? Tell me about the best thing that happened today. Those sorts of, let's reflect on the positive, let's savor and amplify and magnify those positive moments of our days. Well, that's all good and nice. And there's science that supports its use, so it's a good thing to do. But we got bored of it in our family, and so we started to play with some other questions as well. And just recently, we had a conversation around our table where we talked about our favourite memories. Another one we talked about was our best injuries. Another one we talked about was, one where we just played with our favourite food memories. What were our favourite memories of food? And we keep on coming up with all of these different topics to do with memories and experiences. And when you start to dive into it, you discover that just living life together gives you memories. The point is you've got to live life together, and then you've got to pause, ask the questions, reflect. There's actually a psychological phenomenon that Fred Bryant initially did some science around called savoring. And savoring is the amplification or magnification of a positive experience. We can savor past experiences. We can savor experiences right now when you close your eyes and just be here. And you can also savor the future before it even arrives. I can't wait until the borders open up again and we can go on that holiday that we were planning, that we paid for, that we're never going to get the money back for. You know, we can we can savor that sort of stuff as well. So I would suggest that Melanie sit down with the kids and say, let's savor some of our favorite experiences. Let's talk about our best times together. What have they been? What are your favorite memories of us? And she might find that the picnics and the fancy holidays and the beautiful restaurants, none of that even comes into it. It might be that night, like you said, Susie, where Dad put on one of his best 80s songs and danced with Mum in the kitchen, and then all the kids climbed onto Dad's back and started, wrestling and playing, and that might be their number one memory. It's not hard to create those memories. You just turn off the screens, turn on the music, and start playing.
Yeah, so good.
So can we explore the difference between quality and quantity? Like how many memories are enough memories?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one, and I don't know that I've got a strong opinion one way or the other. I've heard some people say you can't have quality time until you've got the quantity, because it's during the quantity that you have the quality moments. There are other people. I remember one time I was asked to speak at one of Australia's biggest law firms. They had me up on the 36th floor of this fancy building in Sydney overlooking the Harbour Bridge in the Opera House and looking out to North Head, and it was just exquisite. And they put on this incredible lunch with their in-house chefs. But the brief for this conversation with, I think it was about 80 lawyers in this room, the brief was this. We found some studies from the United Kingdom that suggest that you can have a good relationship with your children on 12 minutes a day. And I said, 12 minutes a day, that's an interesting number. I said, tell me about 12 minutes. What does that mean in legal speak? And they said, well, that's 2 billable units. You know, we bill on 6-minute increments. You get 10 6-minute increments per hour. So we bill on 6-minute increments. So that's 2 billable units. And you can have a good relationship with your children on 12 minutes a day, on 2 billable units a day. I said, this is fantastic. And so the first slide that I put up was kids spell love, Time. Because I don't think that it matters whether it's quality time or quantity time. It's all time to our kids. Yeah. And if we're doing something with them, it is quality time. But the more of the time we have with them, the better it is. Over time, are there diminishing returns? Yeah, you can probably spend 4 hours and not have much more joy than you might have had in 30 or 40 minutes. But let's make sure that we're getting the time full stop.
Mm.
It's interesting because when I think about memories by themselves, like there was one of my favorite memories of Dad was when I was playing indoor cricket and I took a hat trick and he was there and he was so proud of me. And someone, and the look on his face after I took this hat trick. But that's not a happy memory for me. That was actually a painful memory because it was inconsistent, because I never felt Dad was proud of me except for that moment. And I talked to him about this when I was an adult, that I just need to know that he was proud of me because we're such different people. But yet there's so much that I honor about him. So having a happy memory isn't necessarily consistent with overall everything being happy. Like, to me, that one moment was happy, but it was because of every other moment that I longed for something that wasn't there.
You know, there's some really good data, a fascinating couple of studies done maybe 20 or 30 years ago now on this idea of mattering. I think that our children are going to find that they're going to have the best memories with us when they felt like they mattered. When I think about the times that my favorite experiences growing up in my family, they were the times when my parents showed me that I mattered. And those were not necessarily expensive experiences. In fact, most of the time they were really cheap. There's another series of events as well that I would say were times where I really have wonderful memories. And they were times where my parents did things that mattered for other people. And I saw them giving of themselves. I remember one night, my dad used to drive a milk truck. He was a milkman. And I was on the milk run with Dad one night. We were driving along a dirt road, and in the middle of the road as we drove, there was this great big lump. We stopped the milk truck, got out, and Dad told me to stay in the car. I think he knew what was going on. There was a bloke that had fallen over in the middle of the road, passed out unconscious. There was a nearby tavern, and he'd had a few too many, stumbled onto this dirt road, fallen over in the middle of it, and passed out in the middle of the road. Dad picked him up. He went through his pockets, found his wallet, took the money out, put the bloke on the side of the road and said, "Let's go, son." No, he didn't really. I'm just kidding.
Like, where's this story going?
He picked him up and he lifted him into the back of the truck. He pulled his wallet out and found his address and he drove him home. knocked on the door and helped the lady, I guess the man's wife, get her husband into bed. And I reflect on those experiences, and they're also some of the richest and most wonderful memories that I have of my parents as well, times where they did those exemplary things and they showed their character. But I think, ultimately, if we want to give our children great memories, we should make sure that we're doing good for others, and we should make sure that our children are having good experiences where they matter with us.
Beautiful.
I'd like to sort of go back to the story I told about my dad, because I want everyone to understand that I told a story of, I guess, something that I feel like Dad maybe didn't quite get right with me. And maybe as a kid, I didn't quite get right with him. But overall, my dad did what you just talked about. He taught me character. He taught me integrity. He taught me hard work. He taught me about forgiveness. And, it's 4 years ago he passed away. And I always thought I was nothing like him until I reflected on some of these characters that I spoke about him, and somebody else said, you're just like your dad. And I cherished that while I didn't hear those words like I wanted as a child, as I developed into a human, he taught me so much, which is the best parts of me. Didn't get everything right, but he got plenty right.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Luke. It's so important. Ultimately, the memories that our children have of us are going to be memories of time together and memories of our character. And I think what you've done there is you've really exemplified that. And that's what I think that Melanie might find helpful in her family as well.
Beautiful. We appreciate you bringing some wisdom and having a good conversation about this idea of creating good memories with our children. Dr. Justin Coulson, thanks for your time.
If you've enjoyed the podcast or found it helpful, would you please do something for me? Can you go to Apple Podcasts? If you go there, you can leave a rating and a review. It's these reviews that you leave that help people to find the podcast and therefore to have happier families. I got one from Chris S990 who said, level-headed advice. I love listening to Dr. Justin Coulson's calm and level-headed advice. Thank you for all that you share with us. Well, Chris S990, thank you so much for leaving that review. A 5-star review, I might add. Please do that. It gives me such a little buzz. I go, woohoo, every time I open up the podcast app and see that somebody has been in there and saying, what you do makes a difference. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. And if you would do that, it would be wonderful as well so that people could find the podcast. If you'd like more info, by the way, on how I can help, well, we've got the brand new Happy Families membership. It's live. It's available. We would love for you to take advantage of it. And it's so breathtakingly affordable. So if you would like to have ongoing support, it's, I guess, like having a parenting expert in your pocket. I'm right there popping up and saying, have you thought about trying this? It might just make a difference. I would love for you to join in. All you've got to do to find all the info about the Happy Families memberships and the incredible value and impact that they can have on your family is go to happyfamilies.com.au or visit my Facebook page, Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families.